I'm Cy King, and you're tuning in to the Pie-Eating Man on Chewing the Crust podcast. It's a belter.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Chewing the Crust. Today's guest grew up on 300 acres of Canadian farmland. Maple trees in the spring, cows, horses, chickens, donkeys, high-level competitive swimming in their teens, a work ethic forged in cold mornings and long sessions. Later, life handed her something far heavier than farm chores. Her son was born with an unexpected medical diagnosis, and somewhere in that storm, she found boxing. Not rage, not ego, but discipline, focus, and strength. She's now a professional boxer, founder of Punch Positive, creator of the F.I.S.T or F.I.S.T method, helping people over 50 reclaim their health, and the host of one of the most unexpectedly named podcasts you will hear this year, Dildo Dilemma. Yes, it's a real place in Newfoundland, and yes, she uses humour, storytelling, and the analogies of boxing to bring awareness and action to help end violence against women. I've already had the pleasure of stepping into her world on her podcast. Now she's stepping into mine. It's much scarier as well. I'm really mean. This is resilience with humour. This is strength with compassion. This is Lita Mae Button. Hello, Lita.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me here on your podcast with you. I totally appreciate it.
I totally appreciate you giving me the time to join me, and the same your way. Even though I did babble on yours and went too long, we've got loads of time on mine, so there's none of that.
No worries. It's a relaxing day here.
Great. Well, it's Sunday morning here, but it's like nowhere near as early as it is in Newfoundland, which is like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I am very grateful to you for that. But you assured me that you're an early riser, so.
I am an early riser. I rather do things early than late. As the saying goes, the early bird gets the worm.
Yeah, I'm all in for that as well. So, right, every guest who comes on my podcast gets a little poem. So yours is coming up. Anyone
Okay. All right, sounds good.
The poem is called Gloves, Goats, Grit, and Dildo Dilemma. From maple woods to boxing rings, through life's sharp cuts and heavy swings, she found her stance when hope felt thin and built new strength from deep within. With goats and gloves and steady flame, she fights more than just a name. Through laughter edged with truth and might, she turns her scars to guiding light. That's your poem.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you. You're a poet and you did know it.
Yeah, this all started with like silly limericks for people who were leaving work, and now I'm doing this on like every other week. So.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I would love a copy of that, and then I can share.
More than happy to send you that. The last two people I've read theirs to, they've cried, so you're doing all right.
Yeah. We can either cry or we can either laugh. Sometimes in life, it's much easier to laugh at times than to cry. I've had a lot of tears.
So what I like to do on the podcast is to allow the listeners and the viewers to understand you better, who you are. I always think that generally starts in youth and where we grew up, how we grew up, and how we were shaped. So I'm not entirely sure how to say this, but take us back to is it Kawartha?
Kawarthas, yes.
Kawarthas. Is it Kawartha Lake or Kawartha Lake?
Kawartha Lake, yes, is a very popular, what we call summer spot or lake location, but it's big farm country in the province of Ontario, Canada.
So tell me what it was like growing up on 300 acres of land in Kawartha, because I've had a quick look on Google Earth and it looks like an amazing place. You know, it's a tiny little, quite organized, very blocky town, but I mean, there's hundreds of lakes around there, isn't there?
Yes, there is. And this is why it's like the summer country in Ontario. So Toronto, everybody worldwide is familiar with the capital city of Ontario, Toronto, because that means international hub for a lot of things with the airport and the film industry and all that jazz. Kawartha Lakes is about 2 hours outside of Toronto if you're just driving normally. If there's traffic in the summertime, it can be a different story. It is the kind of go-to for summer vacation homes. Cottage country is what we call it. So there's Muskoka and then there's Kawartha Lakes. Muskoka is only an hour outside of Toronto. So that has been filled up over the years. And now it's like Kawartha Lakes in COVID completely got rammed full of people and the property value went way up.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like all lakes, people go for a cottage. They're doing their like jet skis and, you know, like tubing and then partying on the lake. Yeah, those were some of my fun memories for sure. Growing up, being on the lake with friends and doing like water skiing and tubing and boating and kayaking, canoeing, all that jazz, swimming especially, jumping in the rivers, camping, getting bitten by mosquitoes and black flies. I don't know if you guys have those in the UK at all.
Yeah. Well, we have mosquitoes. Scotland get it worse for sure. It's awful up there in the summer.
Yeah. So I grew up on a 300-acre farm, like you said. And so I had cows, horses. Oh, we had sheep, some sheep at one point in time, pigs, turkeys, chickens. Turkeys only lasted about 6 months. Chickens lasted much longer. We had ducks, geese. I had everything, dogs, cats, but no goats.
Yeah,
no goats. My dad never liked goats because he said growing up, his grandfather had a female goat. And when she used to have her kids, those are our baby goats is what you call kids, she would be full of milk. And so when he would have to go over to his grandfather's, he would have to have, this is before refrigeration was a regular thing in Newfoundland. He would have to have this warm, chalky goat milk, he said. And he never liked it. And then he said, you could pet that doe, no problem, when you didn't have to catch her. And then he's like, and my grandfather would give me a nickel to catch her. And then I could never catch her. So we never had goats.
Oh, I hate goat milk. I hate goat's cheese. It just tastes like the smell of goats. It's disgusting.
It's so funny. It's the healthiest milk and cheese worldwide, though. Like in terms
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Living proof that not all healthy things are tasty, for sure. Oh, God, it's horrible stuff. Some people love it, so yeah. I'm probably wrong.
I love goat cheese, not so much the milk. I'm not a big milk drinker.
So, to you, were those animals pets, or did you have quite a farming view of those animals?
Both, because my father was also a hunter and trapper, so I had the understanding of the conservation and respect for animals and nature, but also these are tools to feed your table, you know, and to produce and sustain you as a family. So, you know, animals were respected, animals were looked after, you know, but you also understood that some of them were designed for your table.
Yeah.
Not just.
And I think in Canada particularly, that is quite a strong link. You know, I think there's a lot more, you know, farm to table than there is in a lot of places where it kind of dodges the supermarket to some extent, doesn't it? The plastic wrap and all that kind of thing. I think Canada is very much in touch with that.
We are much so because we have so much land mass. So like, even if you live in the city, like for example, Kawartha Lakes, like people want to get out of the city for the nicer months of after winter. And so the easiest way to do that is to either, you know, have weekends where you're going away for Airbnbs if you don't have an actual cottage, or if you're lucky to have a friend that has a cottage, or you live yourself in rural areas in Canada, you're very much in touch with nature. We you know, we are, as with this, our saying here is true north, strong and free. That's part of our national anthem.
And probably one of the most Canadian things you could possibly do is tap maple trees, right?
Maple syrup, yes, absolutely. And the season, because we're nearing the end of February, so the season will be coming up here in the next month and a half.
So it's when the sap is rising like heavy.
Yeah.
The only thing I see like that over here is in birch trees, because birch trees produce tons of sap, don't they? And I would imagine it's something similar.
Yep. Birch, maple, sumac as well. Sumac does have some sap as well, but they produce the most when the changes from the winter to the spring, when the thaw is happening, and all the sap is running up to the trees to create more life. Essentially, like it's the cycle of life in terms of creating more leaves, nutrition, and all that to give, after hibernation for the winter times, to give birth new life and leaves to the tree.
Yeah, and I'm very into nature and have always been, and I love wildlife. I love greenery and trees and all that kind of thing.
It's so important for your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely important for your mental health. But about 15 years ago, for the first time ever, I went somewhere and they had very recently cut down a row of birch trees, like lots and lots and lots of birch trees, about this time of year, maybe a little bit later. And I've never seen anything like it. The liquid coming out of the stumps like a fountain. I've never seen it. I couldn't believe my eyes. As someone who kind of generally accepts some knowledge of that kind of thing, I was amazed. So how do you tap maple trees?
Okay, we're gonna go in the process of maple trees. Okay, so maple trees, there's called a spigot. So a spigot is
like a tap.
Yeah, it's like a tap. Well, you have to drill the hole in to make sure that the spigot will fit into the tree. Put the spigot in, tap it in, make sure that it's secure. And I mean, for people who just do it themselves, it's not a full production like an actual farmed maple farm where people do it. You just attach the bucket and then it'll drip into the spigot. For people who actually do it as a farming, like it's their half their livelihood, there's actual hoses that will kind of attach to one tree to another tree, and then the hoses will go into one big colander and trap it. It's
wow.
You go to that, it just looks like one big live like veins across like a maple tree farm, tapping all the syrup. But the way that we did it, because it was just a hobby for us, and my parents did do a little bit of production, but it was just a hobby to more give than sell. It was actual like physically laborious. Like you took the pails, you dumped them into like big buckets, and then we had a sugar shack where my parents, the 300 acres that we had, and then we put in a big colander, and then it boils down, and it's full day production. Like it takes, I think it's 1 gallon to 1 liter of maple syrup, if I remember the actual, what do you call it, like proportions properly.
Ratio.
Wow. Thank you. I'm not a big math person.
It's interesting because I've tapped birch trees and it's very similar. And I didn't realize it was how similar it was, but it never fails to me. And it is the sap, because birch sap is like, it just tastes like green. I don't know if you can understand that. When it tastes like nature, and it's so pure, like nature water.
Yes. Yeah. Maple syrup, like maple tree sap, when you taste, it's like sugar water. It doesn't taste as thick as sugar, but it's sweet. Right?
So it is sweet. All right. Okay. That's interesting. I'm sorry we got sidetracked, but it's interesting. It's interesting. So at that time in your life, you're obviously involved heavily in farming and working on the farm for your family, but also you did a lot of swimming, right?
Yes, I was a competitive swimmer for about from the time I was 12 until I was 17.
And how do you think that workload on the farm, and there's a lot of work involved in swimming, it's early mornings, it's all of that kind of stuff, isn't it? And do you think that fed into your work ethic?
Oh, 100%. Because so when I was in competitive swimming, my training schedule was anywhere from 18 to 20 hours a week. So it was 4 to 5 mornings and then 4 to 5 evenings every week for 2-hour training sessions. It also developed my eating habits. So I totally understood when you were saying about like you love pie and buttons of pie and everything. It's like I ate the same amount of calories at one point in time as Michael Phelps did, like because I was growing
Yeah.
up teenage girl. So my dad had a nickname for me and he called me Seagull because he said, watch your food. Don't blink because if you leave it there on your plate, she's gonna take it like a seagull because she's always hungry.
I used to get called Dustbin for the same
Oh.
reason, but because if anybody left anything, I would finish it.
Yeah, right. So no, it goes
Yeah.
away. Yeah. So
And so did that young Lita, did you envisage yourself being an athlete in the future, or did you have other desires? What was your ambition at that age?
I think my dream was always like when I was little and young before I started swimming, when I used to watch like swimming or watch the Olympics, both winter and summer Olympics, was always to be like an Olympic coach. So coaching was always kind of my dream. It's just life took me on totally different paths. Like I knew I always wanted to be an athlete as soon as I started doing athletics, like higher level athletics. I loved it. I think that was just built into me somehow. And I loved the discipline and the mindset and the challenge of pushing yourself physically. Because when you push yourself physically, most importantly, you got to push yourself mentally first. And so, and swimming didn't teach me the same mental capacities, though, not even close. The boxing did. And yeah, so it's huge. And not many people know this, and I tell everybody when I'm talking and educating them about boxing, because especially the Winter Olympics is on right now. ESPN rates all the sports on like the difficulty level of all the sports. So what makes up an athlete? I can't remember off the top of my head every aspect that makes an athlete, but I'll give you the top 5 things that make an athlete. You got strength, you have endurance, you have agility, you have speed, and you have nerve. Okay. And there's also adaptability. And so ESPN rates what it takes to be an athlete in each of those categories up to 10, and then it averages them. Okay. And boxing comes out as number 1 out of all the Olympic sports. Okay. Because boxing is the analogy to life, okay. Like life has so many challenges that you have to be adaptable. You know what I mean? You have to learn how to roll with everything that life throws at you. You have to learn how to manage your energy, because if you do things like all out all the time, because in the boxing ring, if you're giving it all and you're like going as powerfully as you can every moment, you're going to burn yourself out. So you have to learn how to have timing. You have to learn how to have endurance. You have to learn how to see when the punches are coming. You have to learn how to know when to stand your ground and throw your punches. You have to learn how to know how to go back to your corner and take the advice that your coach is giving you and implement it and going back into the fight and be able to implement what your coach has told you and do that. And life is like that. Life is always giving you feedback, and it's whether or not you're choosing to listen to it and move forwards and implement it so you can improve your life and not make the same mistakes again.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I think about boxing, I think about things like rage management and things like being able to not hold a grudge, because to some extent, many boxers that you will box against outside of the ring will be friends stroke colleagues, but in the ring, I don't think they're your enemy, but they're your competition, and you've got to punch them in the face, and that's not an easy thing to do to a friend, right?
Well, yes, my best friends over the years have been boxers, because there's a certain respect and camaraderie and understanding of how much courage and how much grit, how much determination. Like there's a certain code and understanding and sense of family in boxing. Like for instance, I just went to the Philippines and I stepped into one of the local gyms there because I wanted to check it out. And immediately there was a sense of respect and understanding and bringing me into the culture in the gym because they understood I said, I've experienced and blah, blah, blah. And they saw it right away. And it's like you understand how vulnerable you are as a competitive boxer when you've competed as well. Like, so it's a worldwide family and network.
Yeah, I think that there's almost like it's like an unwritten language almost that and I don't think it just sticks with boxing. It does seem to be a martial arts thing.
It is.
I think I think a boxer could go into a kickboxing gym and get the same level of respect to some extent,
Yeah. You understand the courage and determination and grit and respect that goes on with it. And it's respect for self first and foremost. And respect for self, it influences and it leaks out to other people.
Yeah, and I think I'm no boxing expert, but I do work in honor, and I think there's generally that in the past there's been a lot of honor in boxing, and I think in the same way as politics at the moment, I do feel like, and you may have a different opinion on this, but I do feel like there are some dishonorable faces coming into boxing for the wrong reasons, using the wrong route, and therefore attracting negative feedback from that family because they don't offer them the same respect. But equally, that same, I think we both know who we're talking about in Jake Paul, but when he walks into a ring, because he's going in and taking on people in a boxing manner, there's also a dichotomy of a level of respect that goes with that. To walk into a ring with Anthony Joshua, that's not a clever thing to do for me. And I thought, and I watched your video after that, and I watched how you talked about that. But what I did think, just going back to your first point about the Olympic rating, Jake Paul's clearly a fit person. He's clearly trained hard for it, but he's not a lifelong boxer. And I think that's what came out, because what you said about all those different elements, his legs went, and it showed how physically demanding boxing is, because he was absolutely exhausted, and that's why he just doesn't seem to be able to keep on his feet, did he?
Yeah, and it's the experience in it came out, and when I was explaining in the video, because a lot of people don't have that. They don't, like most people, it's just I don't want to say it's a fad, but they don't have the deep level of knowledge for those of us that have been in the boxing world for a number of years to understand how that played out. And for those from an emotional aspect that wanted to see the bejesus of Jake Paul get the beat out of him. And I mean, that's part of why he's made such a great reputation and built boxing up to a new kind of level for the everyday audience, because it's a lot of drama, right? And everybody loves a good drama.
Yeah.
Whether you like them or hate them. But the pedigree part of it is he only I don't even think he's been boxing for 10 years, if I remember my stats.
I don't think so.
And to be a good pro, you need to have more than 10 years, and you need to have to be at that level of Anthony Joshua. That's why when I saw that fight, I'm like, this is really happening. Like, this is sanctioned. Yeah. And I'm like, well, money talks, right? So Anthony Joshua is bigger than him, and Anthony Joshua just has the pedigree and the calm and the confidence. I mean, his record shows for it. So, he was stupid to say, if he would have been stupid to not say yes to that fight. And so
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And I think it did show why boxing is considered an athletic activity, because I think those who are not in the know, and I'm one of them, people, I don't think I perhaps write it off like other people might have done, but it showed how physically exhausting it is, not just getting punched in the face. But I mean, I was listening to the radio this week, and they had some chess players on, world-class chess players, and they said that a world-class chess master in one chess game will use 6,000 calories to play chess, because of the amount of thinking that's going on. And we all know the brain is a muscle. Well, a boxer is using that in a strategic way, in a very similar way, alongside all of the other stuff that's going on. And that's not the only sport that's doing that, but there's not many sports where you do that and get punched in the face.
Yeah, and nobody, you want to be competitive or not, whether like if you step into a boxing ring and then you start like sparring, that will always show us, like as coaches or like also competitors, when we have people come into the gym. And I mean, some people come in and like, I want to be competitive, and we call them like talkers, right? This is in the boxing world. And we're like, okay, sure. And we always say that we sure. And we don't really say anything else, because what will be shown whether or not they can be an actual boxer and competitive is when they step in sparring and they can take hits to the face. Anyone can throw a punch, but not everyone can take a punch.
Yeah, and boxing is, I mean, I know people who've boxed without boxing, if you know what I mean. They've used boxing for fitness, but they haven't been in a ring, but, you know, and there's nothing wrong about that, but it's not the same sport.
No, it's not. But the analogies are still there. Like, it comes down to the analogies of life, right? Because if you can have, you don't have to take the same, I don't want to say damage, but it is like you're getting punched in the head and you're getting punched in the body. Like, you are taking damage.
Yeah.
It's not the same damage as Thai. Muay Thai is a really brutal sport, I find, because it's called an 8-limb sport. So you're taking damage to all parts, but boxing is finessed, but it's a still hurt sport. Right. So, but if you have the analogies and the mindset that, you know what, you can, go the distance, you can focus, you know what I mean? You can learn how to take a punch and not take a punch, but without actually having to take punches. I do this with my clients all the time. They like working on the tools and saying that this simulates you not taking a punch, learning how to miss a punch. And when you train those modalities in your body, your like reactions to it, the speed, the strength, the agility, the nerve, all of that kind of stuff, the calmness, okay, controlling your energy, it transfers over to life happening to you. So for example, I always say to this, because this is life. Sometimes we're going to be taking something off of the shelf, okay? You know what I mean? Or somebody's throwing a ball at you, and knowing how to have the reaction times to be able to take things off the shelf. If it falls down, catch it, or move out of the way of it, or not get a ball in the face. If somebody's throwing something, you're walking by a field, all of these things translate over to everyday life happening to you.
Well, there's quite literally the phrase "learn to roll with the punches," isn't there? And that is absolutely from boxing. So
yeah, I just listened to a song yesterday, and the lyric was the Van Halen "Jump," and it was about rolling with the punches. There was a lyric. It's in there everywhere. Boxing analogies are in there everywhere in everyday life.
And just out of interest, just for you, we use a phrase when people come full of sort of enthusiasm, but they perhaps don't know, they're a bit too big for their boots. We might say, but we say all the gear and no idea. I don't know if you say the same thing.
I've never heard all the gear and no idea, but too big for their boots for sure. And that was like, we were going to go back to the Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua fights. That was Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. He's too big for boots.
Yeah. But I mean, I've got to hand it to you. I wouldn't want one punch from Anthony Joshua, and he did the rounds he did, so fair play to him. But yeah. And he's got a pocket full of money as a result. I want to ask you, why boxing?
Okay, we're going to go back to, what was the term that you used? I call it anger management. Rage. You said rage.
Yeah.
Which is a very powerful, poignant word. So why boxing? And I'm going to bring it to the word rage, okay, to use it in your words, Mark. So when I was a teenager, like I had swimming and whatnot, but I had bouts and suicidal ideation. I suffered from depression. And the swimming helped me, but it never gave me the mental capacities to deal with that mental lows. And so as a result of that, I mean, as most teenagers, you don't know yourself so much, you're figuring yourself out, but I really had massive, extreme bouts of low self-esteem, lack of confidence in myself. And after I got out of swimming, and for about a 5-year period, I really was like not going in the right direction in my life. I didn't have the confidence to finish things. I just didn't believe in myself. And then as a result of that, I got in an unhealthy relationship with a man who was definitely emotionally abusive and borderline physically abusive. And I got pregnant, and I knew that it was an unhealthy relationship for myself and for my unborn child. And so I left the relationship. But when I left in the first like 2 weeks after leaving him, less than 2 weeks, I got over 60 phone calls in like less than a week from him, his family, just completely harassing me. He showed up unexpectedly at different places, like doctor's appointments that I had, counseling sessions that I had, grocery store. And so it came to a head on my birthday when I was turning 23. He really scared me showing up at my girlfriend's house one night and like the door was locked. I told him no, not to come in. And he tried to break into the house, and I called the police, and he had a previous criminal record. So that deterred him. But on my 23rd birthday, I sat in the courthouse with tears streaming down my face, being like, how the heck did I get here? And I filed a restraining order. But I vowed to myself that I never wanted to feel like that in my life again. And so that was one moment in this about a year and a half, 2-year period. And then a few months later, my son was born. And then about less than 6 months when, I don't know, do you have any kids, Mark?
Yeah, 2.
Yeah. Okay. So you know that stage when they're starting to move and they're getting into everything and they're rolling and doing all these, like they're trying to become into bigger people to stand and all that kind of stuff. My son started getting what we called these funny little bruises. And these bruises were so bad that we have what's called Children's Aid Society here in Canada that come in to investigate if there's any suspected reports of abuse or neglect. And they showed up at my door unexpectedly one day. And when the lady showed up at my door and she said, I'm with CAS, Children's Aid Society, I just remember that there was this cold fear that just flowed down my back. And there was just my heart sunk into my stomach because I knew I hadn't done anything right. But here's this lady showing up my door, potentially who could take away my child. A few days later, though, everything got closed. They knew there was no neglect, but I was left wondering, what the hell is happening to my son? And we got referred to Sick Children's Hospital, which is a worldwide renowned hospital, but they're out of Toronto. And my son was diagnosed with hemophilia B, which is a rare and then at times for years has been life-threatening blood disorder for him. And I just felt like there was a massive sucker punch that happened to me because it was just like life just kept throwing me these like challenges and these punches. And I began coping unhealthy. You know, I'm drinking too much, not channeling my unresolved emotions. I mean, I was young, like I was only 23, 24, right?
Where were you at this point? Where were you living?
At that point, I was living at home with my parents. I just moved back home after college with them because I needed the support. And so it came to a head one night, the sense of rage when I was out with my friends drinking in the middle of summer. And I had experience in college with kickboxing to learn how to defend myself because I'd also had an incident when I was 18 where I got jumped and I never wanted that to happen to me. So I developed those skills in kickboxing to be able to defend myself. But I always remembered that feeling when I was 18 when I got jumped, where it was like, if you've ever had a sense of violence or something that happens in your life, there's just these like pins and needles that come up when you have it happen. There's just like a sixth sense. And I was like, I knew that feeling so instinctually, so primal when it happened. That these girls we all went to grab a cab at the same time. So there's 3 other girls and myself. I ran ahead of my friends. And they started calling me, I'm not going to say like very, very bad names, let's just say. And I remember that feeling. It was like, oh my gosh, these girls are about to attack me. Like, it's just the way it was like pack mentality. And I reacted in rage. Like, I didn't know because it was so primal because I'd been drinking, right? Like, there was no sense of a filter. And I remember those 3 girls got the cab and my buddy grabbed me And he's like, Lita, you need to stop. You need to stop. Like, you can't be doing this. Like, they were all bleeding, got in the cab and took off. And it was that pivotal moment of me understanding that I was not controlling my emotions and that they were both imploding and exploding, that I knew I had to do something. And a few months later, a coach that was training in the gym that I was training in at the time was a boxing coach. And he knew I had experienced kickboxing. And he said, Lita, you will get a lot more experience in boxing in Ontario at the time because kickboxing amateur wasn't legal in 2004. And so amateur boxing was legal. So it was just a whole way just for me to channel my emotions because I knew I wanted to be the number one role model for my son. I didn't want him, he didn't have a dad in his life. My parents weren't there consistent all the time because they were retired, traveling. They wanted to do their thing, which is totally fine. So I was only that person in his life all the time. So I was like, well, let me show him by my actions who to be. And it was just a whole thing that blew up over 20 plus years now. Like boxing became my life. It became my love. It became my passion. And now it's my career as a coach. So 45 amateur boxing matches. 2013, I won the Canadian Golden Gloves light welterweight Golden Gloves championship. That was the first Canadian championship that they had for women. And, 1-on-1 as a professional. And it just became everything to me. An analogy, a way of coping with life, but most importantly, mental health.
Yeah, they do say the impact of those martial arts on your mental health is incredible and almost teaches you calm more than anything, which I think it's well documented, but it seems surprising from an outsider looking in that that's what it would teach you, doesn't it? But
yeah.
So just going back a bit, I've seen you speak about this and I've seen you get emotional, and I don't want to upset you in any way. So please, if that happens, it does. Please could you tell me what you said about the emotional abuse that you suffered from your partner? And I don't want to talk about this because I want to dramatize it. I want to spread awareness about these subjects. So, and I think that in many cases, it takes an outsider looking in to perhaps see these things happening if they can, and then to help. But equally, I think because of the nature of domestic abuse, people make excuses for it who are suffering it, and I wouldn't mind if you're happy to talk about that a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm hearing about awareness and advocacy for sure.
What did domestic abuse look like in your circumstances? How did you recognize it? Did you excuse it? All of those things, really.
I think, and I think this is how it, for me in my circumstance, it didn't happen right away. Like the red flags are probably there, but I don't think I had the awareness or self-esteem really fully to understand, to set my boundaries. And it was slow little erosions over the number of months we were together. So like he would say bad things about my friends, and that like if my friends did something, I call this like an emotional manipulation tactic. He'd be like, oh, your friend did this because they don't care about you, or they didn't show up or do this because of X, Y, and Z. It was just like a very toxic way of thinking, almost poisoning your thoughts and making you kind of second guess the people that are in your life.
And alienating you, presumably.
Exactly. The alienation is huge. So it's like we were together than less than 6 months. And over in the 6 months, it's like if I was going out with my friends or doing things with them, it was like I didn't care about him. And so especially like they call it the honeymoon effect in a relationship, is like you want to do things when you like or are falling in love with someone, you want to do things that please them, right? So it's like, okay, well, I'll spend the time with him because that's what he wants, right? But then it became to I should stay at home because now I'm pregnant. I shouldn't be going out or I shouldn't be lifting, or I shouldn't be doing this. It was just all these levels of control. And then it became to the point, if I didn't if I didn't do what he said, then he would start throwing things. So he started breaking chairs and like smashing walls and stuff like that. And that really started to show me that, okay, this is like moving and it's not just about control anymore. Like it's actually moving towards physical violence. And then when I talked with my counselor after, she pointed that out. She's like, yeah, she's like, you made, you're very courageous and everything that, to recognize and take the step to do that. Cause that's how it's a cycle. Right. Because when I did try to leave, like the first time, it was like all about apologies. This will never happen again. Giving flowers. And then, I don't want to say suckered, but what happens? You sucker back in and you believe like, oh, this person's going to change. And then the cycle started again. And that's often the cycles of abuse for most people who are in abusive relationships. Just some are more extreme. And it's the psychological control.
And it sounds like you were lucky enough to catch that relatively early and not allow it to, shape your entire life. And I'm sure it's had a shape on your life, but it sounds like you got out and many people don't get the opportunity to, right?
No. And I've learned after that situation to listen to my gut way better. My life hasn't been perfect. And, I'm still single. It's like Valentine's Day yesterday. It's like, oh, all those single people out there. It's like, love isn't just about romantic love, it's about like loving everyone. But in terms of, because I've gone through so much growth and development and emotional maturity over the years working on myself. A few years ago, it's like I looked back into it to see, called the Family Responsibility Office because they were responsible for our case after I went to court when my son was really, really young. And they said, we can't tell you what's happened to him, but all we can tell you is that he's either dead, in jail, or he's on welfare. Yeah.
Okay. So you've never heard from him again, which is good.
Oh, I did hear from him, but there was a restraining order, so he couldn't and I learned after, and some of his family was I knew where he got some of it from. And I learned to no longer engage. Like I took care of it in court. So there was no need to have to engage. Everything was done legally.
Yeah. It sounds like from a very difficult scenario, you've done taken all the correct steps to deal with this. And I think a lot of people stop at a certain point. They think it's gone away, therefore they stop and it can come back, or they don't properly nip it in the bud, and therefore it starts to come in again. And I'm that's nice to hear that you did it properly.
Yeah, and I taught my son that way through going through school and stuff. When he had, you document, you look at the patterns, and then if the patterns are still reoccurring, then you report.
So if you don't mind me asking, do you think your son understood growing up about why that was the way it was, or do you think I would imagine he now understands as an older kid?
Yeah, he's really good. I always checked in with him every few years at the different stages. Every kid has a different stage of development and brain, but it was always appropriate, when he was old enough to understand. I'd check in, is this, I gave him in his appropriate words and understanding at his age level why his father wasn't in his life. And then when he was old enough to make kind of more rational decisions, I said, is this something that you want for yourself? Because I will approach that family and we'll do things in the proper channels. And my son was always like, nope. It's like, and then when he became an adult after he was 18, and checked in with him again, and he said, no, he's like, honestly, Mom, the only reason I would ever want to see my father or talk to him is just to express and say to him, why did you not send any money, or why did you not financially help out at all?
Yeah. And I think that shows a level of bravery, but also an emotional maturity to be able to do that, because it can't be comfortable offering that to your son when you're offering him to open not Pandora's box, but worse, quite a monstrous, horrible scenario but it's still the proper thing to do. So again, there's quite a lot of respect to you for that.
Oh, thank you. I think it's just proactively because I mean, you see, like, you talk to people in life and meet other people. Like, you grew up without, like, with like a single mother as well, right? And
Yeah.
understanding that that's a natural thing, I think, for a man to want to understand what their father is all about. So it was always thinking about that. But I also, part of the reason too I boxed was I wanted my son to be surrounded by positive male influences, positive male mindsets. Like there's a lot of men out there that are really great men, and so he saw and he was surrounded by amateurs and professionals who were like at that going towards the Olympic level or like world champion level. That's what he's surrounded by when he would come into the gym with me. And then my father and my son has a good relationship. My parents just weren't there year round. That's all.
Is boxing a part of your son's life?
He loves it. He's a boxing fan and that, and he has had a couple like what we call them smokers or exhibition bouts over the years because he was in a drug trial at Sick Kids. So, and that drug trial allowed him to be able to do things like any other normal kid. So he did pick that up, and he does love training and boxing from time to time, but he's in that stage of work in his life now.
Yeah. And so how has that blood condition that he has, is that an ongoing thing then? It's not it's something he has to manage throughout
Actually,
life?
the UK has the cure. So yeah, there's a genetic therapy in the UK that goes into your liver that has been available, I think, in the UK for the last 7 years, but it's not fully available in North America yet. So, but it is quite, from what we've read, is quite an extensive process to be able to do that because it's gene therapy. So you're actually getting injected things into your liver because in the liver, that's where all the blood clotting procedures happen. So he just takes some medication every through intravenous every couple weeks.
So is it a lack of clotting or increased clotting?
So we all have 14 blood factors in our blood that create the cascading effect for clotting. Okay. Hemophilia A and hemophilia B, which is factor 8 and 9, is the process that helps you fully clot. And he's almost completely deficient in factor 9. So we all, on average, we have 70% to 90% in our blood factors for clotting. I'm getting very like scientific right now, but he has 0.01% of factor 9. But the medication.
So platelets?
No, it's factors.
It's that I don't even know what that is. So that's.
I know, that's what I say. It's like factors. So, and they call it hemophilia B, and hemophilia B is factor 9 deficiency, is what we call it.
Right.
Yeah. So the medication now allows him, when he takes his medication for almost 2 weeks, is almost his platelets, or not his platelets, his factors are almost at 70%. And then they go down over the 2 weeks, and then he has to take the IV factor again, and then it goes back up to the levels.
Interestingly, the first interview I did is a chap and a friend called Steve Edney, whose son was born with brittle bones. And a year into having young Max, or Super Max as he's known, he fell, just learning to stand, he fell and broke his leg. They went to hospital and they were like, his leg's broken. I'm like, what? He literally just fell, 30 centimeters and broke his leg. 6 weeks later, or a short period later, the same thing happened to the other leg. And it was very similar to your scenario. They went into hospital. They started to get interviewed by the police because there was some concern over child abuse. And very luckily, one of the doctors there was able to recognize the very specific signs of brittle bones. But had they not have been there, it could have been a very different story. And one of the things that he told us was that if you were, say, for example, found guilty of child abuse and nobody recognized that scenario, and your child was put into care and then perhaps adopted, if they then found out afterwards, that's it, your child's adopted. There's no going back. you don't get your child back.
That's
And
so
I mean, that's just so scary. And again, like I say, it's these specific signs, the way that the brain forms and knits, and I can't remember what the other one was, but there's two specific signs. I know what it is. It's the eyes. When you shine a light on them, they have like a blue color to their eye.
Right.
And apparently, that they were the recognizing factors. But it sounds like the people who came to your home obviously recognized something in your son which was similar, but very, very scary for innocent, good people. With the first babies. It's pretty harrowing, really.
It's emotionally gut wrenching. It
Yeah, I bet.
really is. But my understanding, like because I was a nurse for a number of years and I understood the systems and understood what social work and all that is about. Now they're not so much in there to go in and tear homes apart. They do want to do the best to bring the homes back together. It's just that's your automatic reaction is like you think that your child's going to be taken away. And that as a parent, a loving parent, that's like the scariest thing that you can ever go through.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And the other thing that we haven't even mentioned about you is you're also a nurse, right?
I was a nurse for a number of years. Yeah.
So was that your profession before you got into the boxing profession?
No, that was after. It was after I did nursing. I started nursing school. I had a number of credits from college, so I did a compressed net because typically it takes you 4 years in university here to become a registered nurse, and I did it in 2.5 years and compressed. So I graduated nursing in 2009, and then I nursed from 2009 until 2013, 14. And then I turned over to I went to coaching because in the nursing profession, I care about people, but what I saw was a revolving door. And I'm always educating myself. And my passion was educating myself on health and wellness, right? And so it's preventative medicine. And what I see is that doctors would just keep prescribing these same medications that have a lot of side effects, especially in the mental health field. It's like people were coming through and there's no preventative, like no looking at your nutrition, no looking at like, here's the type forms of exercises or like cold water therapy. At the time, that wasn't really a big thing. That so many things that are so easy as in like easy to prescribe and do, like nature therapy.
Yeah, affordable.
Affordable. Yeah, nature therapy, exercise, connection, social therapy, animal therapy that wasn't being done. And I said, I just couldn't. I was being burnt out as well because my son was little. He was in the drug trial. I was working shift work and it was really hard to find childcare. And I said, you know what? I'm already coaching in that as well. I'm just going to flip this and start doing this full time because then I can be there for my son and control my schedule, go into hospital and actually have sleep. So after 3 years of almost having no sleep, I was happy to be able to sleep again on a regular basis.
Do you think your nursing skills and your training comes into use in your coaching?
100%, because and that's why I started the Punch Positive Here movement in the last 6 months, really looking at what I stand for. I stand for women and people who are overseen in everyday life, like people who are essentially kind of if you've experienced trauma, or if you're older, everybody's getting older, everybody's kind of overseen. Like it's just society doesn't highlight these things so much, right? So it's really formed in terms of who I am as a coach. Like a lot of people who've come to me over the years have some sort of medical condition. I've specialized in a lot of Parkinson's too in the last 10 years besides women. And I just have an understanding of the pathophysiology of the body. I have an understanding of the medications. I understand of the side effects. I also have an understanding that the body is so much more capable than society gives us credit for as we age.
Yeah, and I would imagine it gives you a level of credibility from a medical understanding point of view, because it's very easy to be a coach in sports, be enthusiastic about sport and say that sport is the solution to everything because it's something you're passionate about. But if
Yeah.
you've got a medical training and a medical background and you've been there, you've done that, you can take the best of that, and you can also highlight the worst and use the boxing to combat that, presumably.
Yeah. That's a really great way of putting it. It's like I understand how to come from everything from all different angles. My clients are always like, "Oh my gosh, you're just like such uh, a wealth full of knowledge." And it's like, well, it's just, I'm obsessive compulsive about always understanding and learning things and researching and how to apply that. Anything I've ever recommended for anyone of my clients or implemented for them, I've always done it first, or have studied it, or had experience with it one way or another. It's not just theory.
So the way you describe that allows you to use your passion, but also use science and knowledge to ensure that you're doing it the proper way. Because people do end up getting hurt by well-meaning enthusiasts as opposed to technically qualified people like yourself. So that's a nice thing, that's an important thing that I think sometimes people overlook.
Yeah, especially in the fitness world, right? I mean, I think that's why a lot of people are not empowered in the fitness world, meaning empowered as in this day and age on social media, it's all about like who looks the best, or you know what I mean, who's having the happiest times. And let's be real, like most people don't show their low or like their challenges on social media because it's just not really, people don't want to be vulnerable, first of all. And I totally understand that because excuse me, there's a lot of people out there who can be very mean and judgmental. Is that health and fitness is not about really ultimately the six pack. It's really not. Health and fitness is about the quality of life and being able to live your life with joy and have the confidence to go after anything you want and have the energy behind it, no matter what age or what you've experienced in your life.
Yeah.
It's so important, because if you don't have your health, everything else in life becomes 10 times harder.
I want to talk to you about a bit more about boxing, but I want to discuss this with you. I'm interested in having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
I've had a couple on the podcast as guests who, very sadly, their son was killed. He was killed on a night out. He was 29, I think, at the time. His best friend, or a very close friend of his, in a group of lads, punched him. He fell back, hit his head, and died. And this group of lads that he was out with at the time, they'd had a fallout, and he disappeared. Well, the group didn't stop to help, and some passers-by stopped and helped. And they went through court. This guy went to prison. I think his mum ended up going to prison because she tried to cover for him, because there was evidence to suggest that he knew that he may have killed him, and he did nothing to stop that. And Stephen and Debs, who have become friends now as a result of that, and for other reasons as well, they teach the scenario that you described about the fight over the taxis. They teach people to walk away from those scenarios, young people in particular. And I'm really interested in the fact that to one person, that punch is devastating, and to another, done properly, it's changed their life for the better. And I find that really an interesting scenario. And I know, because I've thought about it a lot in the build-up to talking to you, I know that they're not the same punches. And that's the difference, I think. The way that they happen, the manner in which they happen. But I just was interested in talking about that with you, because it's such a... Because to somebody looking in, you could say that boxing is encouraging violence, but I'm not convinced it is. I like the word pugilism, because I think that represents boxing in a more respectable way, done properly.
Yeah.
And I'm just interested in if you have any thoughts on that discussion.
Well, boxing is a sport, and it requires discipline, it requires dedication, it requires determination, it requires grit, and like depending on how far you go with it, you know, it really requires commitment to a dream, you know. And everybody who gets into it has different levels of where they're dreaming and what it does for them. You know, somebody might come in and just do like one amateur fight, or somebody might be completely obsessive compulsive and get to the level of like Anthony Joshua, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano. Throwing a punch on the street is violence, right? It's you have no regulation or control over your emotions or respect for self or respect for the other person. Like it's extremely, extremely primal. And that's the difference, right? A sport gives you something that ripples effects to help your community, help yourself, help your family. Violence has consequences. And so for myself, from my own perspective, that was like, I'm a reflective. I've always had that kind of reflective practice. Maybe it's the nursing side of my family, because when I got into nursing in school, you do a lot of reflective practice. And I was like, this is not the person that I want to be. And I have always said to my son, more so because he has a blood disorder, but in terms of a maturity, critical thinking process, so that every action that you have in life has a positive or negative consequence. You know, so because I mean, boys are young and they're full of it, right? Like, so because he's had these scenarios happen, and I'll give you an example. So when he was 12, he had a bully that was after him, and he was telling me about him, and I told him, like, you have to deal with this in a proper way. Like, you know what I mean? You got to diffuse the situation. If the kid's not going to listen, you know, you got to bring it to the teacher. That's still not going to happen. And he keeps bullying. Sometimes bullies have to be put in their place. But my son also had experience in judo and like jiu-jitsu. So he actually like didn't choke the kid out, but scared the kid and like put him so he couldn't, the kid was trying to push him and shove him. And so that was a scenario where he dealt with it properly. But as a, you don't know, like this situation that you said about the family, like that's an extreme consequence, right? Like it's, and if you don't understand how to control your emotions, regulate yourself, you're more likely to get into a violent scenario as a young man. So from a sports perspective, I always say sports for young boys is so important for anger management. Sports for young girls is so important for self-esteem, self-confidence, and leadership skills. Because we're two different sexes, right? Two different ways of like, of that, how we grow and develop. But this is the next scenario. It's like maybe that young boy, if he had been put into maybe boxing or whatever martial art, he would have had a better understanding and emotional regulation.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the reasons I put it to you is not really to try and catch you out, because that's not how I work. But I actually think, ironically, what you do would work, because what they do now, they have a charity now, and they run. They have a hub in a shopping center or mall in a nearby city where I work, where I'm from and where they live. And it's an open door hub where people can turn up, have a coffee if they're feeling down, have somebody to chat to, learn about mental health, learn about the scenario with Scott. They also have a play now that goes around the country which teaches people about the subject. And all of that, I actually think there's a place for someone like you there on this subject. You know, the irony of the fact that this subject could actually help people not get into that scenario, I just think is really poignant and interesting as a dichotomy. That's I find it very interesting, because I genuinely think that someone like you in that town or that city involved in that charity could actually help it. I don't know how they feel about this, and it's not my place to suggest it. I wouldn't, but I just find that interesting that actually well-trained boxing, because I think they've actually had a boxing tournament for the charity, because they're called. In fact, just here,
because it brings. I've done 2 charity events where I've trained people and we do the charity. It brings. That's so cool. One Punch Hall. Oh,
that's their charity. So,
yeah.
and they have had a boxing event because he was a big sportsman. He loved soccer or football and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but I just think it just shows they are open-minded to it, and I think it's important that we. I know you've kind of done that, but I also wanted to do it, underline the fact that the difference is massive, and actually one is preventative and positive.
Exactly.
The other is totally toxic and uncontrollable,
Yeah.
But I just think it was interesting. I hope you didn't mind me asking you that.
No, oh gosh, no. I'm open. Every podcast, I'm open to any questions. I'm an open book. I'm almost finished my book. I've got to get back into the track of getting it published here in the next couple of months.
Tell me what it felt like the first time you got in a ring, competitively.
It's a rush. There's nothing quite like the high of being in a boxing ring. So the first time, whoa, you're bringing me back now. The first time I got in the ring, it was Brampton. I believe it was Brampton Cup in 2004, and it was a real eye opener because I remember the feeling of like entering into the 3rd round, where my legs were so heavy and my arms were so heavy, and I just couldn't connect what I wanted to do in here with what's going on in here. And that was the first where it's like, oh my gosh, like my conditioning for boxing is gotta level up. Like I wasn't thinking that in the boxing match at the time, but after I lost by like points kind of thing. Like it wasn't hurt or anything like that. But it's like the amount of stamina, the amount of like mental ability, the amount of being able to like breathe, like to be able to control your breathing and then be calm, to listen to your coach and do that. It requires so much physical and mental ability. And so after that first boxing match, it's like it was a whole other like, oh my goodness, I have to like bring up my A game to be able to be like a real competitor if I'm going to keep doing this. And I wanted to keep doing it. It was an addiction.
Because I think the other thing people forget about boxing is, one, you're on your own.
Yeah.
There's nobody else there. So it's not a team sport in any way, shape or form.
No.
I appreciate it kind of is when you get back to the corner, but when you're out there, it's not. And then I think the other thing that people perhaps overlook is you're on stage as well. It's not when you're in a football team on a pitch, you're one of in the UK, you're one of 11 asides. There's 22 people on the stage, and everybody isn't looking at you. When you're boxing, there's just 2 of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting on stage in a performance is gets your heart going. So you've got that as well.
Yeah, it's really understanding how to control your nerves. And I don't know if you've ever heard this saying before, but it's like the fight is lost or won even before you step into that boxing ring, because it's all, right? Like whether or not you believe and confident and you've done, part of the confidence comes from the training that you put in. So like, have you trained enough? Have you listened? Have you, you know what I mean? Have you eaten properly? Have you rested properly? All these things build on your confidence before you step into that boxing ring.
And I think I've been in fights as a younger man when I was, and there is nothing louder than being hit in the head. It's the loudest noise in the world. And I think for the first time I'm sure you'll have been hit before then, but getting in the ring and being hit competitively, and your heart will be going everywhere. Your adrenaline is already on full, and then being able to hear your coach after that, because all you can hear is that noise over and over and over again once you've been hit. That is incredible.
And so, go ahead.
Sorry. No, please go.
It's because a lot of people, when they get hit, and this is part of me, like from coaching, it's like understanding how to keep your calm and not let your emotions get the best of you, because
Yeah.
it's not a violent scenario on the street. It's a sport. Like, you know, how you have to learn how to keep your composure and execute your game plan, you know. And
Yeah.
then if you can't execute your game plan or execute your fight plan, uh you have to know how to adapt and be able to reevaluate and adapt to do what you can do to win the match, win the boxing fight.
So when you turned professional,
Mm-hmm.
walking out to that ring with your son, what did that represent to you, given all that had gone on and all that had got you there in the first place?
Now I'm gonna get emotional.
Great. We do like tears on this
You
podcast. I have
like
to say.
tears? That's great. Okay. I'm gonna cry on a Sunday morning. It was a pivotal, and I share this a lot when I'm talking on podcasts or speaking on stage, or when people ask me questions about my journey. When I began boxing, it was the driving force was like, I wanted to be that number one role model for my son. And I remember walking out, because you have your walkout song, and my son was walking out beside me, and it was in Gatineau, Quebec. And it was that, like, even though I'm in the moment, I'm in the boxing mansion, like I'm there, I'm mentally prepared, I'm ready. Like I knew I was ready. In my mind, I had won the match. I did win the match, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have come to fruition of what I set out like the 11 years before to do. You know, like here he is watching this, you know, understanding that when you put your mind to something, and you know, like I'm being that example for him in real life right now, him watching this happen. So it was a very pivotal moment in my lifetime.
And interestingly, you know, from me looking in and knowing what I know now, that was only really 11 o'clock when it comes. If you think of a clock dial, that was 11 o'clock, because actually, really, when you went on and got the Golden Gloves.
Yeah, it was the year before I won
that
the Golden Gloves. So the year before I won the
Yeah.
Golden Gloves. Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is another incredible achievement. But that was perhaps more for you than for him. Do you think?
All of it. He was my why. I had a lot. Like I always say that I was either going to implode or explode, and I did both in my lifetime. So I have a very deep understanding now of like how to channel my emotions in a positive manner. But it's like I didn't want to be an angry parent, you know, like with this frustrated parent who's not dealing with emotions properly. So it was both. It was like I want him to see that anything is possible, and I want to be able to deal with my emotions in a positive manner, because I'm a very passionate person. And when passionate people, you know, you can be passionate in a positive way, or you can be positive or passionate in a destructive way.
Yeah, definitely. And something you're very passionate about is that boxing isn't just for the young. And you know that what you're now doing, and if you could go into it, is helping other people achieve what you've achieved and show a positive example in what they're doing, right?
Exactly. Right. And I always first and foremost believe in role modeling first, because like I like to say, talk is cheap. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a coach per se that is like the same level as myself, but you need to walk the walk.
Yeah.
And just talk the talk. And so I'm very like, and I always look ahead in my life, like from try to work on a reverse perspective. Nursing taught me this, being in the like long-term care and mental health is like, well, if I'm 80 or 90 years old and I look back on my life, do I like the happiest people that I saw in like retirement homes, long-term care homes, and that were people who had no regrets. You know what I mean? They had great relationships, and that it's like, well, that's how I want to live my life, you know? And the people who are miserable had so many regrets and had poor relationships with their families.
Yeah, I think we call it leaving nothing on the pitch.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. really, I try to really get to know people and have an understanding now where people's at, because a lot of people are not clear on what it is that they want for their health and fitness. And so that's why I really try to get to clarity and understanding on a deeper perspective when I get on like a coaching clarity call with someone, first to see if someone is a fit to work together, because it does require commitment. And then
Tell us what your business is, so because it tell us actually, what you're doing, what that encompasses, and then perhaps a little bit more in detail about what that is. Who are you doing this for?
yeah, exactly. So essentially I mainly work with women who are over 40 who like are feeling too tired, too unstable, or just feeling like they're too old to start again. I help them rebuild like strength, balance, and brain power so that they can rise with independence, and as warriors of longevity for their own life. Okay, whatever their why and everything may be. And I do that through my Punch Positive program, which is about the F.I.S.T system. So the F.I.S.T, we look at the F.I.S.T, the F is I help people go and focus from feeling like they're fragile to fierce. And then the impact part of the F.I.S.T is looking at your gut health. So we're impacting your gut health to help your brain health, because a lot of people are not aware that that is our second brain and impacts our health on a massive level. That's like the foundation of your health in your gut. The S is for strength, right? It's the low impact boxing to help improve their strength for their mind, body, and emotions. And then T is for together, because no one should go alone on this journey. So we're helping them together to help them thrive with their health and fitness. That's what I do through my Punch Positive program.
And we were talking just before we started the podcast, because you've just been on a wonderful break on the other side of the world, right?
Yes.
And how you've been able to not just manage your business while you were away. You found that doing the way you conduct your business has changed a little bit, and actually it's almost better.
Yeah, it's a deeper magnifies the changes and lasting changes that I make for my clients. Because
So how have you done that?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question. So when people often look at like coaching or personal trainers, it's someone that you meet hourly and that's reps in the gym, or you're taking classes in the gym. I no longer do coaching that way. I help people with a coaching program that I've put together that's anywhere from 3 months to a year. And I hold them accountable, and we look at everything from the person's mindset, the obstacles, the nutrition, everything that they're having to do, so that they become more empowered to do things themselves. But I'm that coach that looks at all the little pieces that helps them do that. So instead of it just being hourly and showing up for the hour, or what's available on your time slot, or what's available on the coach's time slot, I'm available 6 to 7 days a week to help them through that.
And there's nothing now to stop you going to the Philippines as many times as you like, because you can do your work from there, right?
I can do my work from anywhere. Yeah. That's how, when I visioned my life about 6-7 years ago and started setting it up that way, this is what I wanted, because I wanted to be able to help more people, as opposed to just being like helping people like for 1 hour or 2 hours a week, that there's just like 20 or 30 people maximum that you can usually fit in a class.
The thing I love about that is when I think about, because I'm not fit and I need to be, and my diet needs
Maybe
to
we
improve.
could get a little clear here, Mark. We'll have to set up a coaching clarity call for you to all get understanding.
We might need to do that. And when I do get to it, I've got ADHD, so when I do get to it, I just become obsessed with it, and it takes over my life, and I'm really good at it. It's just it only happens once every 5 years or so. But what I love about your system, and that I can go to the gym. I don't need any help doing that. I'm not a boxer, but the machines that I use, or the exercises I want to do out in going for walks and things, I don't need somebody to help me with that. I need someone to help me in my dark hours between those slots to say, that's not okay, or that's okay, but you need to turn this round. And when my enthusiasm is winning, the thing that catches me out every time is a holiday or Christmas or an event of those kinds where I have a break where I indulge in things that I perhaps shouldn't, whether that's laziness or food or whatever. I really struggle to bring it back from that. And I think that your system would be excellent for that because it keeps you accountable.
Yeah. And that's really that is the hugest like hurdles for a lot of people. So as a coach, for example, it's like we look at I'm proactive. It's not just showing up and putting your hour in. It's looking at what's going to happen this time, that time, looking at things. Okay, and here's the plan. It's not because so many people, health and fitness is very emotional for most people, but the way that health and fitness is traditionally set up, it's logical. So one of the systems that I go through when I first start working with people is I go through my smart cart so you don't fart on your health and fitness goals because it's very psychological, it's very mental, and it's very emotional. So we're looking at everything that targets you on every different level of mental, emotional, and physical so we can be proactive and look at these things before they come up. And it works extremely, extremely well for my clients in the last 2 years. I'm very proud of the way that I coach now because it has a lasting, impactful effect for people.
So do you find that element of it is a bit like a touchstone when things are going downhill? It gives them a zero. Well, not doesn't allow them to get back to zero. It allows them to get to 50 so that they can pick it back up to 100 easier. Is that what it is?
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Exactly. Because it's not about perfection, it's about progress. Right? It's about your lifestyle and when we're adult, it's different when you're an athlete and studies have been shown on this. It's like the environment and that is set up. So you're completely immersed as an athlete. You've got your meals set out, you've got your schedule set out, but then you step into real life and real life is chaotic. You know what I mean? Like this family member calls you because they need help with this, or they're in the hospital and they have to do this, or your job's wanting you to do overtime, or you've got this vacation that's coming up. And then, I fell off track on vacation. So, it's like looking at all the different angles, just like in boxing, of how to best set you up for your health and fitness for you, not this like 12 to 1 p.m. class in the afternoon or 6 to 7 p.m. class in the evening, and then that's it.
Yeah, I like it. I think and presumably you can do this internationally now if you really need international clients.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's the step this year is like I've already started. I'm collaborating with another women business owner for confidence building for women in business in the Philippines, and then also helping nurses in Thailand coming up this year. So I'm switching my business internationally, and because right now I charge Canadian dollars, so I'll be charging USD dollars coming the next few months.
The other thing that I find interesting about or positive about it is the links into menopause. The strength training that goes alongside the importance of menopause, the gut health and the diet involved in menopausal needs that the body needs and will help manage those things brilliantly. So, because I often think for women, certainly the strength training can be an intimidating thing, and people who, not just women, anybody, but men don't go through it, but anybody going into a gym to start doing strength training in their 40s and they've never been in a gym before, or they've never regularly visited, that's an intimidating place and section of the gym to actually go to, because it's always where we call them battle rope Barrys, where the battle rope Barry, the guy who likes the big battle ropes. Yeah. But they all feel like they know what they're doing in that section of the gym. And one of the things I try and encourage, certainly from men, is to get in the gym with the partner that needs to get in the gym, because you probably do as well. But it's just having someone to go with, having somebody, and you are that person to some extent, encouraging them to take part in that. And I don't think sometimes people realize the value of that. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. a lot of what I do is you're building, like for women over 40, it's like looking at strength, balance, and confidence without having to go to a gym. A lot of people
Yeah.
think that they need a gym. They have to have this hour to go to a gym to be able to get fit. And I remove all those barriers.
Nice. Which is massive.
Yeah, which is
Um,
huge. And then when you're like in that sandwich generation, like you and I are, it's like, you're looking after, well, my son's grown now because I had him, but you're looking after your kids, and then your parents are starting to get older. And so now you have to look after your parents. It's a huge, like, it's a huge, what do you call it? Game changer in terms of time efficiency.
Yeah, and money's tight, so you end up doing all sorts of things. Your weekly shop is not, or your groceries is not what it used to be, and it's double what it used to be. So even just the money to put into a gym is a cost that people may not have or be willing to spend. Just getting there, if you live in a town, it can be 15, 20 minutes just to get there. And then you've got to do that back again, all of that kind of stuff. So if you can eradicate that, it's even better. Makes your fees absolutely worth it.
Exactly. You're investing in yourself in terms of so many different things, like understanding how to spend money better in terms of your nutrition, understanding how like have your body and your energies better so it's more production for your workplace or business or whatever it is that you do. It's a huge investment, in terms of rippling effects and investing in yourself and your health and fitness.
Yeah, definitely. And getting rid of guilt, that's the other thing as well, isn't it? Making it so you're not beating yourself up. You can come back to something after doing something that wouldn't fit into your every week, but perhaps coming back to it and getting on with it again after you've done those things, because that's where I fall down.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely.
how do you see your involvement? What happens psychologically to somebody when they realize that perhaps they're stronger than they thought?
Confidence, the confidence, the ability to do things that you never thought you could do before, and be able to handle yourself in situations that you never thought you could handle before. And boundaries, because for women, boundaries is a huge thing. Like, we are conditioned, it's changing, but it's changing extremely slowly. It's like we are conditioned to be people pleasers, right? It's like we're conditioned to say yes to everything, like, is this the way? For example, like aesthetically, we're always supposed to be looking pretty and youthful and all of that. I mean, that's boundaries in terms of expectations, in terms of what people put on our looks and that we feed into in the media, or boundaries in terms of it's not always healthy. We don't think it's so healthy to say no to people, but no is like one of the most empowering words that we can have in terms of people being able to respect our space. So that's the hugest rippling effect that I have with my female clients, is that sense of confidence. Like, one of my clients, she's a nurse, and she's like, I've never done this before, but she's like, no, I walk down the hall, and she's like, with my chest high, and she's like, I just feel so confident about life.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
That must really reward you for what you do when you hear that.
Yeah, I just it's like I've, in terms of personal self, is understanding that celebration and recognizing the effects that I have on people's life is like something I've had to acknowledge more, because I've had that programming in my life when many people do. It's like, I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough. So
It's interesting though, because when I look back at photographs of myself, I was thinking this yesterday because I was decorating, so I was looking at photographs that I was taking off the wall, and I saw certain photographs of myself, and I thought, I thought to myself, I prefer certain photographs. And what is it? And it was actually photographs where I'm fit, and it's not, perhaps I don't think it's about appearance from me from looking at those pictures. It's not because I look fit, because actually a lot of them are just my head and shoulders, so you can't, I just know I was fit. But there's something in my eye, a confidence in the photograph taking, that I can see that I like, and again, coming back to what your point, that actually I think the confidence is the thing that I'm most comfortable with in those photographs rather than anything else.
Yeah. And confidence is contagious, and it bleeds over to everything in life. Like again, it's like I've become confident because of all the things that I've done, but the younger me was never confident and couldn't look at the capabilities or belief in myself. And sometimes as a coach, it's like I have to bleed that confidence onto my clients to be understand, because I've been down. It's like, I know where you're at right now, and I know where you can go because I've been there. It's not going to be easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's going to be easy. You have to put the work in. But if you put the work in and you build the confidence and you look at the things that you accomplish, small steps, medium steps, big steps, you're going to build a new level of identity in yourself that's going to transfer over to anything else that you want to do in life. And that is so powerful.
And you lend them some of your confidence in the first place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
That's
everybody's
nice.
different. Everybody's an individual, right? So I find that with coaching men over the years and I've heard other men coaches that say this, so it's not just me that said this, is like when you coach men, is like they don't listen very well at all. And it's like you really got to kind of like, you don't mean to, but it's a different style of coaching. You got to knock them off their thing, like get them to listen. Whereas what I find with women is like, I always have to bring women up so high to be able to get them to see them the way that everybody else actually sees them.
So you think that men are more stubborn?
I don't want to get into the
not
whole.
wholly. I've just been on from a training point of view. The reason I ask you is I have always worked in the workplace with women, and I was raised by women, and I can think of scenarios where I work with women, and I wonder if I am that. I wonder if I am. I think that's if I can see if there's ever any friction.
Yourself that question, you're not. People who do not ask themselves questions, the people who do not, like, because it's reflective practice to understanding that empathy and understanding outside of yourself. Whereas
the reason I ask you is because I think that's the only point of friction I can ever see, is that I'll try and do it a certain way. What I struggle terribly with is numerous masters. If I've got 5 people teaching me to do something and they all do it differently, I just think, sod it, I'll just do it my way, because I need one way or no way, so that's when I get stubborn, I think. But I try not to be stubborn, but I have been stubborn in the past.
I think it's stubborn because being like a very stubborn person in my life is in like, there's certain levels of stubborn. Like, it's just, if you're just bullheaded stubborn just to be stubborn because the way it is, or are you stubborn because things need to get done and you have to see it through?
I think I'm stubborn because I get confused with all the different messages. So I think, I'll just do it my way. And that's where I fall for it. But
I understand.
Anyway, enough man bashing, because I know that's not what you're here to do, and that's not what you were doing. I was doing it. So anyway, I want to talk to you before we finish up about your podcast and about what I would say Newfoundland, but you seem to make it into one syllable somehow.
Newfoundland?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it is. It's Newfoundland when you look at the word, but like many things on this province, is like everything kind of just rolls into one.
Because Newfoundland is like, it's not really Canada, is it? It's its own place, from what I can establish.
Canada. We are Canada.
But I'm more mean emotionally, and it's like I can't think of a place in the UK. It's like a different Canada.
It is a different Canada. We are Dildo Dilemma, humor in the face of trauma. Like I always open up educating everybody, as you know, because you're a guest on my podcast. Newfoundland is its own province. We are in an island, okay, with its own time zone, okay, of just over 500,000 people, and we have funny towns and places called Heart's Desire, Heart's Delight, and then comes Dildo. And Dildo is the town that is in the harbor that is just across from Spread Eagle, which is in Conception Bay, all located in Conception Bay, right? So we have a lot of history and humor and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scenery. We are a Canadian part of Europe.
Yes, I get that, and you can definitely tell it was named by the Brits and the Irish and the Scottish. I presume it was anyway, because we have all of those weird names here. You know, there's a place in Durham called Pity Me, and we've got a place in my home city, Hull, called the Land of Green Ginger, and you know, it's a street actually called the Land of Green Ginger, but just. It's very British are the names of the places, but and the irony is, and I think I've done my homework correctly, Dildo is not called Dildo because it's related to any of those things.
No, it's not related to adult toy or adult entertainment. No, so
it's just pure coincidence that there are other places that match the narrative.
Yes, exactly. Pure coincidence, quote unquote. Or God or the universe's sense of humor wanted to make this place entertaining. No, dildos are actually on the boats, smaller fishing boats that transport before technology and all that came along. When they had the big fishing rigs that would come in, they can't come into shore before. Because they would get stranded. So the smaller fishing boats were invented, dories that would go out and transport the big massive amounts of cod from there to shore to do all the fishing processes and staging and that. And on these dories are small wooden rings, and they hold in the rows for rowing. And they're named Dildo.
And that's where the name of your podcast comes from, Dildo Dilemma.
Yeah, Dildo Dilemma. Yeah. Humor in the face of trauma.
And then there's you must be sick of telling these stories, but there's the funny iceberg stories as well.
That's in my speech. That's actually in one of my keynote speech. Yeah. So one of the things that Newfoundland is known for is its icebergs. And so in the spring of 2023, there was an iceberg near where I live that went viral because a photographer from Dildo took a drone picture of this iceberg, posted it on Instagram, social media, and within 24 hours, it went viral. Poof. It got nicknamed the Dicky Berg because it looked like a penis with a scrotum. But a little less known fact that the world doesn't know about at the time is at the same time that Dicky Berg was famous, the iceberg that was just out front of where I live that I could see was in the shape of fallopian tubes. When you took a picture from the top, that's what it looks like. It looks like a fallopian tubes. And they are all located in Conception Bay, North.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Can't say God, the universe, source, whoever it is, doesn't have a sense of humor, right? And it's up to us as humans to put the sense of humor together.
What I think you do with that, and it's something I try and do on this podcast, is to diffuse and disarm difficult subjects through humor, because I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's if it's done the right way, and you offer the subject matter the respect it deserves, but humor allows us to make it more comfortable to talk about, I think that's the right way to do it.
Exactly. It breaks down the barriers, right? I mean, mental health, PTSD, trauma that has happened to people that has been, let's say, shoved under the carpet for a number of generations. Like I like to say our parents' generation, because I had abuse that happened to me when I was a kid, and I remember trying to talk to it. And it's only now in the last few years I have the gumption to bring it out in conversation. It's still, I don't go through the details or anything like that, which is no one's business but your own. But, it wasn't, these are conversations that nobody addressed when we were younger. And, it becomes a cycle in families and a cycle of trauma in families that can occur. Because if you're not able to feel safe to talk about it, how are you ever going to heal and move forwards and not break that cycle? And humor is a way to help us all. Like, life is so hard and serious enough as it is. Why can't we just have a little bit of lightheartedness to break down those barriers so we can heal and overcome and have better conversations that are healing about it?
And in your in the podcast that you do and the people you've spoken to, what areas of violence against women do you think, what subjects around violence against women are still not happening loud enough? What conversations need to be had more, do you think?
Okay, that's a really great question, Mark, and I love it. And I'm gonna give a perspective that is going to be kind of what most people won't look at, is healing the perpetrators. Okay. And there's men that are doing this now, like yourself. You're advocating for helping men understand it's about the men's responsibility, right? But part of that responsibility too is understanding, how do we also help the men heal? Because a lot of women still want to be with their husbands or their boyfriends, whoever it is. So it's like looking at the proactive way of helping them stop those patterns and have better ways of hoping and healing and connecting. I had an interview with one of the ladies that's in the law system, in terms of advocating and helping those who are victims, helping what's the word, convict perpetrators, but she advocates for the victims and supports them that way. And this is one of the questions I asked her, what can we do? And she said, we need to have more community services that are similar to the Native way of being. She didn't say it exactly like this, but in the Native way of being before, is what they would do is they would sit down as a council, and it wasn't about shame, and it wasn't about, segregating people who have committed the crimes. It's looking at how, as we as a community, can support one another so that these actions don't happen again. Because shame, judgment, guilt, pointing fingers doesn't help someone heal and have less recidivism. That's the word I was looking for. Where they, obviously murder and rape and all those things are very, very triggering events, and are not events that people need to, like, what do you call it? They need to have repercussions and stuff. But the fact of the matter is that people who go into jail are most likely to have recidivism rates because they're not given the tools and skills to be able to heal themselves and come out of jail and have and not do these crimes again.
I literally, on Sunday last week, interviewed a chap who was a 28-year career criminal, working around drugs. So he would go, I think he had 40 to 45 different stretches in prison. And he said that in the build up to leaving prison, his main aim was to score drugs as soon as he got out, because he said, he's gone straight now, and he said he's never been happier. But he said the obstacles of having gone into prison in 1999 or whenever it was, and all of those years now to today, he doesn't know how to pay bills. He doesn't know particularly how to use a computer very well, how to engage with people on a level where you can complain constructively, because he's lived in a world where you don't complain constructively. You sort it out with fists or with in other ways. And he said so many people come out of prison, what we think of whether or not they went to prison for long enough is none of our business, really. If they've done the time that they were allotted and they've gone to prison and they've done what they've done, for me, you can't opt to stay in prison for longer because you think your offence was worse than it should have been. So, but that's he said that his main offending or reoffending, certainly if it was now, is because he just does not know how the world works. He does not know how to
You
do
haven't been
stuff. So
given the skills.
yeah, and then they're not the same thing, but they're very similar. You know, I have very little patience for anybody who chooses to hurt somebody on purpose.
Yeah.
But I have all the patience for somebody who recognizes that they want to change.
Yeah.
And that can be the same person. So, you know, but I agree with you 100% that and I think men have to be in that conversation.
It's 100% men have to be in the conversation because the majority of men are committing those violent crimes. Right?
Yeah.
It's you know, we just had a major violent shooting that happened in the west coast of Canada. You know, and these are conversations. I haven't really gotten in on the conversations yet, and I haven't made like any public posts because I've just been kind of sitting on it and that. But it's so multi-layered. Like everybody ultimately, I think what it really comes down to, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, especially when you're everybody's debating things on social media, but everything in life comes down to accountability for yourself. You can't control everyone else out there, but you can control the choices and actions that you take, you know. But from a systemic standpoint, the system needs to change in terms of supporting people to build the skills to actually heal. But our systems aren't set up like that.
No, and I mean, again,
reactively.
I interviewed a lady that I released a couple of weeks ago, Pamela Michaud. She's amazing. She was a refugee from the Congo, came to Belgium, and her family, who she was living with, basically treated her as a modern slave. So she didn't go to school half the time. They got her working. They cleaned around the house while they watched TV. You know, she cooked for them. Had a horrific, but she called it out to the police 2 or 3 times. She ran away, and the police were in on it. You know, and the police took her back, and she went back to slavery, and there was no support. But the whole argument with that, and it transcends all of these subject matters, is call it out. You've got to call it out. Men, particularly in this scenario, you've got to call out sexist jokes. You've got to call out misogynist behavior, because that's where it starts. Silly jokes, or because that gives permission for the next level. That's the thing, you know, that. And that's what I think men perhaps don't always. I don't think it's just men. I think it's society don't understand that those tiny steps add up to big steps, and you are facilitating an acceptable behavior for the one that's sat there thinking, "I wonder if."
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to being able to be brave, I think, and trusting that to say, call it out and say, you know what, this is not acceptable behavior, you know. And how would you feel on the receiving end of that?
Yeah, and there's that phrase, isn't there? You know, find your people. Well, if those people are doing that and you don't agree with it, they're not your people. So whilst it feels terribly uncomfortable to do, and you may find you have no people for a little while, your people will be out there, and you will gravitate towards them. They will gravitate towards you. You may have to look a little bit, but you can't carry on gravitating with the people who are not your people, because it's not okay. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. I was going to ask you, if somebody listening wants to take action, what does that look like? But I think there's so many answers to that. So if people are listening, if somebody is in a domestic abuse scenario,
Right.
what does action look like? Because I think it's not dissimilar from what you advised your son, really.
It ultimately, it comes down to recognizing the signs, right? So, and having conversations with people that you feel safe with, and can trust. That's very, very important. And then the second thing is documentation. It's huge because when it comes to legalities, documenting the times, documenting the conversations, documenting the reports, all of these things come down to, if it comes to court, that it's building your case. That's so, so important. And your lawyer will appreciate that 100%. And then having a safety plan with somebody that you feel safe to do that with is very, very important as well. But there's different stages. I know from conversations that I've had and the research that I've done is like leaving is not the same for everyone. Somebody might try to leave and then they come back. And there's no being safe and understood with someone is making sure that person or whatever kind of services that you're reaching out to is not going to judge you. Because,
and I think it's important to say that somebody telling you who you can trust and who you can't trust is probably not somebody who should be making those calls.
Yeah, that's definitely the way. If somebody's trying to tell you who you can or cannot trust, is maybe a little bit of a red flag in and of itself. They gotta support you.
I imagine that in people in that situation must feel like they can't trust anybody or they can't share that with anybody. And I often wonder, if I was in that situation, what would I do? And the only people I can think of that I could perhaps go to where I knew I would be safe would be people like my GP or somebody in a position of legal requirement to keep your secrets, who could perhaps advise. And I always think if you've been convinced by somebody that you can't trust your friends, you can't trust your family, if you buy into that, the only person I can ever come back to is my GP that perhaps will help. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, and ironically enough funny enough that you say that. I reached out to my best friend and she helped me. Like it was a bit of because we'd had a falling out at the time, and I reached out to her and she helped me, and she was really supportive during that time. But the person who really helped me see the different perspective was the counselor that I had. She gave me the tools to really be, this is what you need to do. And I had struggled with things with my family, and she made me see, like, I don't have to please my family. It's okay not to please your family. Like, you got to do what you need to do. As long as there's no malicious intent or anything along that lines, you're not hurting anyone.
Yeah.
You're
That's great advice. Okay, well, I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
It's the final and possibly the most important question of the whole podcast, and that is, what is your favorite pie filling?
My favorite pie filling, blueberry.
That was easy.
Yeah, I live in blueberry heaven. Blueberries are like a big export here in Newfoundland, and my mom makes an amazing blueberry pie. It's not too sweet, it's not too tart, and it's full of antioxidant, great brain boosters. Is blueberry pie. And then my mom makes an amazing blueberry pie. I wasn't sure if I said my aunt or not. And then my aunt makes an incredible blueberry buckle, which is like it's like a sponge cake with blueberry all in it.
I like blueberry muffins. Is it kind of like that?
Kind of like that, but it's more like melted through, as opposed to blueberry muffins just have like blueberries in the muffin. It's like a sponge cake that's flat with the blueberries all melted in. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. And am I right in thinking you pick blueberries with like a basket with fingers on it?
Yeah, you could do that, or you just pick them with your fingers. The blueberries here that we have can be like this big. So.
We have bilberries, which are very similar. They're a close relative, and they look very similar, but they're just not very big.
What do they taste like?
So, blueberries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but they're called bilberries.
Oh, okay.
They're very similar.
Blueberries are blueberries.
And you get like crowberries and bearberries and all. You've got all white berries, I think, as well. You get all sorts in Canada.
The snowberries. The snowberries are white. We don't typically eat those. Are more made for like wine and stuff like that.
I love watching. There's a program on TV called Alone, and that's often in your neck of the woods. I love watching that because I'm a bit of a survival geek, so I love it.
That's my dad's favorite show too.
Is it?
He loves that show.
Well, I tell you what, one thing that happened weird on it, I was watching this guy and he said, I used to live in the UK and I grew up and I moved to Florida. And I thought, I know this story. And there was a kid in my class at school and it was his brother.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
We're all connected.
Yeah. So I contacted Craig and I went, oh, Craig, is this your brother? And he went, yeah. So that was cool.
Funny.
Yeah, sidestep. Right. So I just need to say thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. I think what you do is amazing. I think it's inspiring. And I just hope we can keep in touch and keep on inspiring people. So that's it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mark. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
So, everybody, that was Lita Mae Button. From farmland mornings to professional boxing lights, from unexpected diagnosis to disciplined resilience, from goat walks in a pandemic to global advocacy through humour. Lita Mae Button reminds us that strength is not about age and hope is not about luck. It's about a decision. Boxing is not just for the young. Reinvention is not just for the young. Courage is not just for the young. And sometimes the most serious work in the world can begin with a name that makes you smile. This has been Chewing the Crust with me, the Pie Eating Man. Keep chewing and look after yourselves and look after each other. And we'll see you next time. Thanks ever so much.